All right, buddy. Thanks for coming on the show. We appreciate having you here.
Yeah, absolutely. My pleasure.
Hey, so we've talked the last couple of episodes about experiential learning. There's two different kinds of experiential learning. There's one where you just, like you're a kid, you just hop on a bike and you just figure out how to ride a bike. You kind of come by it naturally, or at least maybe unnaturally in some cases, but you work your way through it. And then there's generative experiential learning, and that's where you decide you're going to learn something by experience. We talked to quite a few folks that have kind of learned that way. And so today I want to get a little more on the teach, coach, mentor side with you. But before we do that, you have a phenomenal story. I've already read your bio, so people kind of know who you are and what you've done. But if you could walk me through all the way back to the first steps when you just started getting involved in real estate, you have a terrific story that involves this kind of learning, a painful version of it. So I'd love to hear from it.
I don't know if I'd describe it as terrific. It's interesting.
Terrific for us. Terrific for us.
Terrific for people that didn't have to go through it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I was in the Marine Corps, and I happened upon Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and like so many millions of Americans, that book changed the way that I thought about money and real estate and everything. But unfortunately, so I'm one of those guys that I tend to jump eagerly into things that excite me without a whole lot of preparation or training or whatever. At least I did when I was younger. And, I decided that after reading that book, I was going to become a house flipper, right? And I'd seen a couple of flipper flop shows on TV, and
it looks so easy, right?
It seems pretty simple, right? You buy an old piece of crap, dilapidated house, you renovate it, and then you sell it, and you make a ton of money, right? So that was my simple 3-step plan. And so I cruised into 29 Palms, California, which was where I had gotten stationed after Okinawa. And I drove up to the very first real estate office I could find. Literally, it said real estate on it. That was the name of the office, real estate. And I walk in, and there's this crusty old dude. He's probably in his 70s, behind this massive stack of newspapers. You remember those physical newspapers? They have
physical copies.
Physical copies of newspapers. That's how old this dude was.
Nice.
And so I walked up to him and I said, "Hey, check it out. Here's my 3-step plan. I'm gonna buy a piece of crap house. I'm gonna renovate it, and I'm gonna sell it and make a bunch of money." He was like, "That's a great plan. That's awesome. People make tons of money that way." And especially now, June 2007, the housing market's on fire, and you're going to be great. And I was like, "That sounds great. Let's do it." Right? Well, if you know anything about June of 2007, or you can go on Google and just learn it, that was about 3 months after the market started to really crash. And then after that, for the next 18 months, it dropped in some places over 50%. It was the greatest housing market crash since the Great Depression. And I was on the very tip of it and didn't know. And so for the next 18 months, I poured all of my money into it and renovated it every single day after work, on the weekends. I did it all myself, right? Except the electrical and the plumbing. And so, I even brought my girlfriend, who then became my wife, into it, and she helped me re-roof it. She helped me rip out the carpet, everything, right? It was a total DIY thing. Well, after 18 months, it was a brand new house, fully renovated. All my money had gone into it, and I got it appraised to see how much it would be worth. And it appraised for half of what I bought it for 18 months prior.
Brutal.
And all of my net worth, I had a negative net worth at the time. And it was so easily avoidable. Like, if I had consulted any actual legitimate, mentor type, as opposed to a realtor who just wanted the commission. He just wanted to sell a house and make a commission. He couldn't possibly care. I never talked to him again after that. If I had spoken to anybody, if I had Googled anything, I would have discovered that the real estate market was crashing and that it was the worst time ever to flip.
Literally the worst time ever.
Literally the worst time.
Yeah.
If you go back, so I still own that property. It's 72285 Sun Valley Drive, and in 29 Palms, California. You can Google it. And if you can go back far enough and look at when it was last sold, it was sold to me for $152,000. And then I put 30 grand into it, and then it appraised for 68,000 almost 2 years later. So imagine that being your first step. So anybody that says, "Oh man, I just had a really rough time getting started," I'm like, sit down and grab a tea and let me tell you a story.
Yeah. Yeah. So we've talked a lot about success and failure on the show. And I found that because I work with young folks, right? We do coaching and mentoring and we work primarily with students and some young vets. But the problem is that most people's, they need a paradigm shift in how they view success and failure. Most people view it as directly analogous to winning and losing. If you're successful, you're a winner. If you fail, you're a loser. Or they'll wrap it into their own identity as a capability assessment. If I failed, then I am a failure. Or if I succeed, then I am successful. And I think both of those are not just wrong, but they couldn't be more wrong.
Harmful.
And the way to reframe, harmful, exactly. Yeah, you start to run into a cycle of catastrophizing where if I'm a failure at this, I'll be failure at the next thing and then the next thing, and I won't graduate college and I won't get a good job and I won't be a good dad, and it just goes on and on.
Becomes
and
your
so
identity.
Yes. The right way to frame it is, because we focus on learning and teaching, obviously, but I think the right way to frame it is through learning. All success means is that you've learned something in the past, and failure means you are learning right now. And it doesn't make it comfortable and it doesn't make it easy, but it means you're in the process of learning. And so my question for you is, in that instance, which is probably the hardest lesson you've ever learned, maybe one of, how did you turn around and turn that into success? What did you learn about it to then go on and be successful?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the biggest thing, I love the way that you frame that, because what it does is it does two things. One, it strips away the stigma of failure and success, because anytime you allow a success to become your identity, you latch onto it as your sense of self-worth. The second that you don't, it's people become arrogant that way. Like if you have a lot of success, there's nothing more common than somebody that has, like maybe you bought a bunch of Bitcoin right before it had a huge run, or you bought Tesla stock before it had a huge run, or Apple stock, or whatever. I know people who've done this, they've invested, that maybe they had 20 grand of net worth and they put all 20 grand into Tesla stock and then it tripled in value, or a better one is Bitcoin, where it goes up 10x. And so now all of a sudden they have $200,000 or $300,000 worth of net worth in a year. All they did was they made one good/lucky decision. It doesn't mean, and they didn't learn anything out of it. In fact, they learned something that's wrong out of it, meaning I'm the man. I have it figured out. I have it figured out. And then you saw this happen whenever the market was going crazy, like in 2000 to 2002 to 2007. Basically, everything you touched turned to gold. And you had these house flippers that had done it before me, right? That had made so much money flipping houses, doing exactly what I did. From 2007 to 2009, exactly what I did. Buy an old piece of crap house, renovate it, sell it. That formula made people into multimillionaires, and they started writing books and blogs and teaching and coaching and all this stuff based off of that formula. And then they lost everything, because that formula didn't work in a downturn. And there were people that committed suicide. Why? Because their sense of self was tied to the success, not to the prospect of learning and growing. So it can be really damaging to view success and failure as a reflection of who you are as a person. Instead, do away with that and say, I am a lifelong learner that has a massive capacity for growth. But the only way that I grow is I either do one of two things, and I adopted this as a mentality for my life. In any engagement, I have two outcomes. I either win or I learn. That's it, right? And that's not just a bumper sticker. Like, I'm literally in the middle of learning right now in several of my projects. Several projects, my timing sometimes is really poor. And I'll have a great strategy, but the timing is just wrong. And this happens. Sometimes my timing is great, right? I bought a house with my VA loan in 2018, end of 2018, here in Carlsbad. And, if you look at that, end of 2018 till now, especially the end of 2018 till the mid to end 2021, housing prices in Southern California doubled. So I literally bought a house with my VA loan, and I renovated it, right, using money that I borrowed from a friend. And then the housing market, it doubled in value. So I literally added $1 million of net worth to myself, to my family, just because the timing was right. And I was doing exactly what I did with Sun Valley, buy a house, renovate it. Now, I didn't want to sell this when I wanted to live in it, but the same concept just happened to work. It doesn't make me a bad person in 2007. It doesn't make me an idiot or a fool or anything. I learned from that process, and what I learned from it has allowed me to build 4 businesses and attain financial freedom, and now we have White Feather and thousands of members and veterans around the country because of the lessons I learned. And you know what else I learned from Sun Valley is I still own it, right? It's still the same house. I haven't renovated it since then, right? Okay. So that's 18 years. So I haven't done anything to it. All I did was rent it out, and I broke even for the longest time. And now I still own the house. It's worth about $270,000 now. I owe about $120,000 on it because I refinanced it down to a lower interest rate. I owe about $120,000. It's worth $270,000, and it's rented for about $1,600 a month. And my mortgage every month is around $800. So it cash flows like almost $1,000 a month, and I've got $150,000, $160,000 of equity in it. It's the same house. Do you know what the only difference is between the house back then and the house now? Time.
You've had it. Well, you've had it a long time. Yeah.
I have had it a long time, and now it's a great cash flow engine with a ton of equity, and and it's managed, and so it's now actually a good member of my portfolio, only because of time. Now, if I could go back and change things, of course I wouldn't have bought it. I would have waited a year and then bought 10 of them, right?
Right. Yeah.
Right. But that's a lesson that I learned from that. And if you have the humility to say, I can always make mistakes. I'm going to try not to. But if I do make mistakes, I'm going to own them and I'm going to learn from them. Then you have the ability to weather the storm of mistakes and problems and things that are outside of your control. And you don't let it affect you like on a deep personal level. You're upset by them. You just don't let them grind you to a halt. You either win or you learn. So I think your framing for that is phenomenal. And I've never heard somebody else talk like that before. I just thought.
Well, I love you took that entire thought, though, and summed it up perfectly in one sentence, right? Which is that you win or you learn. I mean, so, you're right. It's not a bumper sticker. I think it's a lifestyle. It's a mindset. You talked about growth mindset. Not being afraid of failure and being able to learn from those. It's not easy to do. Like, let's not pretend that was an easy time in your life, or that anytime any of us go through those failures that we just shrug them off. But, I think what I try to convince, especially young folks of, is don't let your emotions take over. So feel crappy for exactly how long you need to feel crappy for, and no further, right? Feel bad for yourself for 10 or 15 seconds or 10 or 15 minutes or, whatever it is that you need to do. And then it's time to sit back down, figure out what went wrong. Could you have even foreseen that, right? I mean, sometimes people make, like you mentioned, you have a great plan, you execute it perfectly, and there are forces well outside of your control that mess with it, right? And stumble you up. And so I think it's like a superpower, being able to sit back down, evaluate everything you did, and sometimes you go, you know what, I did everything right. I just had crappy luck on that one. Let's recock and try again, right?
Yeah, and also it's not about winning every time. Like, if your journey is, I mean, and it depends on what, we can talk in, I guess, more philosophical terms about what you're trying to accomplish in life and so on. But let's just, for the purposes of this conversation, say you're trying to build financial freedom. Just something very, very specific. $10,000 a month of passive income so that I can do whatever I want with my day. Who cares? But something specific. Your journey to that $10,000 a month is not going to be win after win after win after win. It's trying to achieve more wins than losses. That's what you're trying to do. It's learning from the mistakes, learning from the losses, even if they're outside of your control, right? Yeah. And having more wins than losses. Like, specifically for me, I went on a tear after Sun Valley, where, I mean, if you remember, in 2009 to basically 2022 or so, the market just went up. Yeah. And so you had it repeat itself again, where people were like, I'm the man, because I've been doing this 10 years. And it's like, yeah, but it's been 10 years of an upcycle. So don't write your book just yet, right?
Right. Yeah.
Because you see that a lot. But I mean,
Yeah.
so what? I was like everybody else. I mean, I bought rental properties and everything like that, and for the longest time, it was just win after win after win. And then I started investing into syndications for apartment complexes. Me as a limited partner, meaning I was investing my money in something somebody else was running as an operator.
Yeah.
And so, if you remember, the same thing, the apartment complexes went on a tear as well. And then right around 2022 was when, if you remember, COVID hit in 2020, basically. And then the government poured trillions of dollars into the economy, and that caused runaway inflation. To combat that inflation, the Fed tripled the rates. And what happened is interest rates and mortgages went from 2.25% to
six,
seven and a half, right? Well,
Yeah.
what does that happen? That creates a massive like shift in the market. And it when you buy an apartment complex and you're running your numbers based off of 2.5%, maximum 4%, and then the
Yeah.
interest rate goes to 8% for apartment complexes, you've got a real problem. And so
Yeah.
I invested in half a dozen apartment complexes through syndications, none of which are paying out right now.
Yeah.
All of my projections had me making $10,000, $12,000, $13,000 a month of passive income from those investments that I'm not getting right now because of a variety of different reasons, one of which was the macroeconomics, and I can't do anything about it. I'm a limited partner. It's outside of my control, and the property, those are not wins. Maybe you call them losses, maybe you don't, because they haven't come full cycle yet. So we're still holding on to them, and they may come out and pay out big in 5 years. I don't know. But right now, they're not paying me the passive income that I expected. And so they're not wins, for sure.
Yeah.
But guess what are wins? The 20 or so single-family properties that I bought over time that are still cranking out cash flow, including Sun Valley.
Yeah.
So people look at me and they're like, if you're tempted to think that like all of the stuff that I do works, kill that notion right now. The reason I'm financially free, and it may not look like it because it looks like I'm in a cell right now, but this is actually
I was going to say, so like, for those that are listening and not watching, Buddy looks like he's in an isolation cell right now on his own. So
it's quite literally that. I just have the freedom to leave. This is a co-working space.
Okay.
So we rent our house out every summer, and we use the money to pay for vacations around the world. And we happen to be staying at a resort that has crappy Wi-Fi. And so I came to a co-working space so I could have this. Yeah, but
nice.
so
Nice.
but the reason that I'm financially free is not because everything that I've done has worked. It's that more things have worked than have not worked. And if you adopt that kind of mindset, then you truly do. You don't get completely clobbered whenever you make a mistake, right?
Yeah.
You just fix it and move on.
Another way I think it's healthy to reframe this, because this is a great transition into what you have done since then, is that every failure you have is an opportunity to teach somebody something. And in fact, one of the things that we teach through my business when we're working with young folks is that you actually have a responsibility to teach. It's not just, ooh, it'd be nice if I could teach someone else. It'd be nice. No, I think you actually have a responsibility to take people under your wing and pass on all of the lessons, hard lessons and failures that you've learned. And at some point you decided to do that. So you were building this, real estate empire, and you were finding success finally, right? Mm-hmm. And at some point you decided, I'm going to pass this on to other people. I'm going to teach folks. And so I want to go back to that moment, 30-year-old Buddy, or however old it was, mm-hmm. and ask some pointed questions like, hey, what are you thinking about? Why are you teaching other people what you're doing here, right? You have a successful business. You could spend more time with your family. There's a million things that you could do with your time. And instead of enjoying yourself, you decide, no, I'm going to build a whole new wing of White Feather, and I'm going to teach other people that are in specifically how to do what I'm doing. Embrace that responsibility to pass on what you've learned. What made you do that, and how did that turn out?
It started gradually because I was just excited. Right, I'd buy a house and it would start cash flowing, and I'd be like, "Oh wow, that's I've got $2,000 in that account now," and I haven't done anything, and wow, now there's $3,000 in there, and it was just I was doing my job as a Marine officer. I was I deployed 3 times to Afghanistan, so this was all happening while I was deploying, and so it was slow and gradual, but I'd be so excited by it that I would just be talking about it, and in general. my Marine friends were super supportive and excited for me. And they would always be like, hey, how can I get involved? Like, how do I do this? And I'm like, I don't know, man. I like, this is how I run my numbers, but that, I don't know. And it was just a general sort of conversational, group that I created. Like, there's maybe a couple dozen guys that I had talked to that were like, had expressed interest in real estate. And then in 2017, February, I remember, so I had a property that was in Yucca Valley, California. And it was in a 6403 El Dorado. And I had bought it, and they were on septic tanks. That whole town was on septic tanks, but they wanted to put a sewer in. Well, how did they pay for a sewer? They taxed the homeowners.
Taxes.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so our taxes on that property were going to more than double, which was effectively enough to kill all my cash flow. And so I was like, okay, time to sell, do something with the equity. So I sold it and did what's called a 1031 exchange, which is where you take all the proceeds from a property, and as long as you invest them in other real estate, you don't have to pay tax on it.
Taxes. Yeah.
Right, so pretty sweet, right? And so
Nice.
I did a 1031 exchange, and I had enough money for two $30,000 down payments. I ended up making about $60,000 of net off of that. And there's a great story, by the way, we can go in at another time. The reason we bought that house was because instead of paying for our wedding, we decided to get married at the courthouse and use the money for a down payment on that house that ended up eventually launching, an empire. So kudos to my wife for being like, we eventually later.
Now hold on, because I know a story about your proposal, right? Let's back up just a little bit. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you proposed right after the Sun Valley incident, right? Negative net worth.
Yeah.
Complete failure. And
yeah.
I know that you proposed to her with nothing, but on top of that, you convinced her to take the money for the wedding and invest it. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, give her great credit. Maybe the key to being able to build a successful business is finding the right partner to live with, to run your life with, So after the Sun Valley incident, I told her, I said, I don't know why, honestly. I think we had seen that the whole town had dropped in value, but because the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq were raging, the troop strength was getting plussed up, which means their allowance for housing was getting increased, which means the rent that they could pay went up. So imagine
the
this.
values of the home dropped, but the rent was
the values of the homes plus rent. Yep. Then the values go down, rent goes up, your cash flow for each property goes up. So unfortunately, I didn't have any net worth at the time, so I had to start getting really creative to buy houses, and that's a whole other story. Man, if I had had the money, I would have bought 10, 15, 20 houses at $60,000 a pop that are now all worth $300,000, right? Yeah. So anyway, that's another story. But yeah, I told her, I said, listen, we live in the desert. I'm working on base, 12 hours plus a day, right? Yeah. I have a negative net worth, and you're having to work at Napa Auto Parts, driving around greasy batteries in order to pay the bills. Will you marry me?
Well, I'm going to have to warn everybody. We clearly have the greatest salesman of all time on the show right now.
I told her. And actually what makes it even funnier is if anyone has seen a picture of my wife, she's exceedingly beautiful. She's this beautiful blonde, like she could have her pick, right? And I think, you'd have to ask her, but I think what helped was that she saw the vision. She saw the vision of what could become, and she knew how dedicated I was to it. And so I made the joke about the net worth, but I also was like, there's an opportunity here, a generational opportunity. And I grew up on welfare, right? And so I know what it's like to grow up in poverty, and I was determined 100%. Quite honestly, this sounds unromantic, but with or without her, I was going to change the legacy of my family. But I wanted to do it with her because I love her. And so I said, this is what I'm going to do. This is the life that I'm going to build. And she, to her credit, believed me. And was like, and I'm down. I'm down to work. I'm down to help and learn. And then, we got married at the San Bernardino County Courthouse. We paid like $118 for the wedding. And we had scraped together all of our money over several years. This was after the Sun Valley. This was several years after the Sun Valley incident. But we scraped together and saved up all our money. And we saved up, I think, $16,000. And we used that money to put on the El Dorado house that eventually turned into $60,000 of net worth, or of equity. And then back to the story, I did a 1031 exchange of that equity into 2 properties in Memphis, Isherwood and Brownsville, and I bought them from a turnkey provider. Now, this is where the story gets really interesting. Yeah. I bought those 2 properties, still on both of them, by the way, and now the equity is over $250,000 from that single decision to get married at the courthouse, and
awesome.
We eventually had a tremendously luxurious honeymoon that was paid for by the equity. Anyway, so, but that buying the 1031 exchange properties in Memphis from the turnkey provider, I asked him, I said, man, this is awesome. These 2 houses are better than the one that I had. They're cash flowing better. I have Marine friends that I've been talking to for years, and they've always wanted to get involved. Do you have any more of these? And he said, yeah, man, I've got like 35 that are coming down the pipe. And I said, I said, let me make some calls. So on a Saturday morning in February of 2017, I called 5 people, my brother, my actual brother, and then 4 Marines that I'd worked with, and they all were like, heck yes, awesome, yes, I'm in 100%. So I went back to Matt, the turnkey provider, and I said, I tell you what, I can help people buy these properties from you, but I don't want to charge them, and I'm not going to do it for free. And he was like, awesome. So he said, I'll give you a marketing fee for each one, basically, right? Very, relatively small in the scheme of things. But I started word of mouth, and within 2 years, through word of mouth, this little band of warriors that we had collected purchased over 300 properties in Memphis out of him. 300 properties. These are normal Marines, just like each of them self-directing their IRA, putting a down payment here, right? And it spiraled into this thing where my proceeds had equaled and surpassed the amount I was making in the Marine Corps, and so per month. And so then a guy named Scott contacted me and said, listen, we don't have anybody in our community who's doing what you're doing. It's awesome. You should teach people how to do it. So you should create an accelerator. And like Richard Branson says, if there's an opportunity that's exciting and you don't know how to do it, say yes and figure it out.
Yeah, what's an accelerator? I don't
I have no idea. What's an accelerator? How do you do it? Whatever.
Go figure it out.
All I know is I'm passionate about it. I'm already helping people do this. I know it works. And it's not rocket science. So I said yes, and we put 18 people in this little course. And that was the beginnings of what eventually has created now over 400 graduates of the accelerator who collectively have purchased over $1 billion of real estate as a group.
It's amazing.
And we've got 60 plus people that have become millionaires, normal people that have become millionaires through real estate, and it's just phenomenal.
So full disclosure, I'm one of your graduates. We just finished the course this last week, and it was incredible. But I want to backtrack just a little bit because there's a thread that runs through your story about your relationship with your now wife and with everything that you did with real estate, and then also with building a community and bringing other vets in and creating all this, which is passion, vision, and your ability to communicate those things effectively, right? Mm-hmm. Like just in teaching so my background is teaching in the classroom. I've taught a lot in classroom environments, and the best teachers I know are the most passionate people about their subject, right? Mm-hmm. They remind you of a 10-year-old kid on Christmas describing the Transformers that he just got in detail, every one of them, right? Mm-hmm. And that, like every time you talk to someone who's taken a class, right? Even if it's a subject that they didn't care about, what do they say? It's the teacher that made it. They were so excited about what they were teaching about. You can't help yourself but to get excited. And you have that effect on people around you. I think you have that effect on Kimberly. You had that effect when you were doing the real estate and you had a vision that you were willing to stick to, that you're passionate about. Mm-hmm. And then most importantly is that you communicate extraordinarily effectively, you're articulate, and you're a great storyteller. So, why am I bringing all these things up? Because the podcast is about teach, coach, mentor. And we deal with students, we deal with teachers a lot. And all of those things are true, whether you're in the classroom, whether you're in business, whether you're in a relationship. So it's, it starts with step one, which is establish your identity. Who are you? What is it that you do? If you're not there yet, it still has to start with identity. Right. Just so as an example, I might work with a young guy who says, well, I want to be big, right? That's all big. All dudes just want to be big in the gym, right?
Yeah.
But they don't go to the gym. So it's like, hey, man, I don't care where you're at in your life right now. You need to establish the vision, and the vision comes from your identity. And it starts with, I am a lifter. I'm not a very strong lifter. I don't bench a lot, but I lift and I go to the gym. And if you don't start from that place, you can't get anywhere after that. When obstacles get in your way, when failure gets in the way, the only way you're going to effectively navigate those is if you can communicate. And you can only communicate if you have a clear path in your mind. That is the vision that you have on the path that's forward of you. If all of that is perfectly crystal clear and you're passionate about what you're doing, you can articulate that to yourself and to the people around you. People will start showing up to help you in that endeavor. People will show up to partner with you. And so that's what attracted me to you. So I'll say, like, I did not sign up for your accelerator to learn about real estate. And I'm glad I did. I learned a ton. And it's going to change my life in a lot of different ways. But I signed up with you because of how passionate you were talking about what you've built, talking about what you've done. And I thought, like, I need to learn something from this guy. He's got something to say. He believes in it, right? You're just exuding authenticity, right? You're obviously you're helping vets, which is something that's special to me as well. And I don't know, that's what attracted me to you, in the first place.
You said a bunch of stuff there that is so, like, powerful for people that are listening to this, that want to create a business or a community or whatever. You also said something that was hilarious, because it could have been taken offensively, but it was the most true thing ever. You didn't say it on this podcast. You said it previously. You were like, there's nothing that you can teach me that I can't learn somewhere else. Yep. And that is 100% true. By the way,
the information is free.
The information is there. It's free. Yeah. It's available. If you think for a second that there's any one human that has a piece of knowledge that ChatGPT doesn't have, that's useful, then you're incorrect. But here's the question. With all of that out there that's readily available, why do people gravitate toward communities? Why do they gravitate toward mentors and coaches? Because as humans, we're attracted for sure to passionate people. And not just passion for passion's sake, but people that why do we watch artists that literally, or like actors or sports, any kind of NFL players, quarterbacks, whatever? Why do people love listening to Tom Brady talk about football, even though he hasn't played football in years anymore? Because you can feel from him that he was meant to do one thing on this planet, and that is be a quarterback. He wasn't physically gifted. And by the way, I'm not a Tom Brady fan. I'm a Peyton Manning fan, so I have to be against Tom Brady because they went head-to-head for years, and Tom Brady got the better of him over time.
Yeah.
So I agree and recognize that he's the greatest of all time. I recognize that, even though it hurts my heart to say it. And it's beautiful to watch. If you watched him take the Bucs, like literally when he left the Patriots and he went to the Bucs, and in year one, in a different conference, different division, different team, different coach, only thing he had was Gronk, basically. He took them not only to the Super Bowl in year one, never been done before, but he handily won against the league's best team and the best quarterback in the league at the time, and Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. That was art. And I loved watching that, even though I didn't want him to win. I had to sit there and respect the art. If you've ever watched Michael Jordan play, it's art in motion, right? And the reason it is because Kobe Bryant's another example of this. You see these guys that are maniacally obsessed, and they're so passionate. Listen to Elon Musk. Forget your politics for a second. I don't care about politics. I care about someone that is passionate about what they're doing. They're dedicated to it. And it is in their DNA, and you can feel it from them. And you're attracted to that. Humans are attracted to that. So here's the lesson for anybody listening. Find something that you're so passionate about that you can't not do it. Yeah. And then learn how to use that to provide value, to provide some kind of value, right? And then work at it really hard. Right? Because you don't become articulate. Like, the thousands and thousands of hours that I have spent rehearsing things and trying to figure out how to say things properly and learning from other people, you don't become articulate just out of like luck. You become articulate through practice.
It takes a lot of rambling in public and embarrassment and for sure.
Yeah, and having just conversations. Like, I don't prepare for any podcast I ever go on. And I know you sent me an agenda, and I honestly didn't even look at it because I appreciate you sending it, but I'm saying I didn't look at it because I've had thousands and thousands and thousands of conversations about this. And I can't not do this. And by the way, my passion is not necessarily even real estate anymore. It has grown beyond that. I love real estate. I'm passionate about it, and it's great. And I'll be forever grateful that it helped me go from food stamps to financial freedom. But what I'm really passionate about now is helping our nation's veterans build financial freedom so they can actually live the dream they fought to protect that so many don't get to live. Right? How many of your Marines do you know that got out and they're struggling now? Yeah. It's the common story. But like you mentioned before we started this, every one of those guys and girls in 2025 and beyond, they have the awesome superpower of AI, the internet, interconnectivity, and the gig economy. You put all those together, and anyone can create $1,000, $2,000, $10,000 a month of income with very little or no startup capital at all. Yeah. And that's great freedom for me.
Tell me how you're transitioning, because if I could provide a little bit of perspective, I think even in the real estate course, you were not exactly creating real estate investors. I think you're creating entrepreneurs that happen to do real estate. And I know that there's some shifts going on now with White Feather. There's a huge focus on AI and bringing those tools to the forefront. So tell me what the future is for White Feather and for AI, and how you're going to continue with your vision. Still, I assume real estate focused, but tell me how you're going to continue with that vision to help vets create financial freedom.
Yeah, the problem with focusing entirely on real estate and focusing entirely on people that can invest in real estate is that's a very small segment of people in the military. It's typically officer heavy. It's typically not even junior officer heavy, because they're, junior officer, they make good money, but like they don't have any capital saved up so it's a very small segment of people. And honestly, in my opinion, not where the most need is, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And but you got to start somewhere. So I took the Elon Musk approach to the way he built Tesla. He started with the Roadster, and it was an extremely expensive luxury vehicle, but the point was not to get it to the masses. The point was to break the paradigm and the stigma of electric vehicles sucking and not being sexy. He's like, electric vehicles can be fast, they can be sexy, they can be awesome. I promise you, it can. And so and by the way, if you look at the mission of Tesla, it has nothing to do with vehicles. The mission of Tesla is to move the human race toward an energy sustainable future. That has nothing to do with vehicles. But he used the vehicle in an audacious way, challenging the entrenched Fords and GMCs and the auto industry that crushes newcomers. In Silicon Valley, he launches this electric vehicle thing. And he gets Leonardo DiCaprio in the vehicle, and people see Leo driving around, and he has been actually at the top of the acting game for a couple decades, right? And so people see him driving around, they're like, wow, that's cool, that's sexy. And so people started buying it, and then he rolled out the Model S, which was still an expensive luxury sedan, but is far more accessible to the masses. Yeah. And he got tens of thousands of people to buy. And then he rolled out his knockout punch, the Model 3, the everyman car. And now Tesla is worth 3 times what the next competitor is, right? And anyway, my point in saying all that is White Feather, I didn't have this grand plan like he did, but I stole the plan from him over time, because he's always been a hero of mine for what he's done with SpaceX and Tesla. And so I said, all right, this real estate thing, it works. It's worked in my life. I want to be able to help veterans do this as well. How do I do it? Well, let me focus on Naval Academy grads, because I'm a Naval Academy grad. Let me focus on Marine officers, because I'm a Marine officer. The level of trust is going to be there bigger. Yeah. And I was right. Every time I talk to a Naval Academy grad Marine officer and interested in real estate, they join White Feather. It's that simple, right? Because they're like, this is what I want, this is what I need, right?
Yeah.
So, by the way, you're a Naval Academy grad, Marine officer, interested in real estate. Our conversation wasn't a sales pitch. It was a conversation, and then it happened. And I knew it was going to happen because it's, right? So anyway, so we built it up, and now there's over 400 of those types in White Feather, and like I said, they bought $1 billion. So now we're beyond the line of super credibility. This works. Now it's time to pivot to roll out a different ecosystem that can help the 17 million veterans that live from the East Coast to the West Coast. And you can't do that with an accelerator that costs thousands of dollars and then asking them to invest in real estate. It's just not. Some of them need a job. Some of them need to pay off their credit card bills. Some of them need to learn how to budget. Someone needs to learn how credit works, right? And how to use their GI Bill and all the various things. And then there's an AI thread that runs through all of this where it's a superpower, guys. If you remember one thing from this podcast, remember, AI is here to stay. It has created a massive tsunami headed toward humanity that will either crush those that don't embrace it, or those that do embrace it will be able to surf on top of the tidal wave and see further than they've ever been able to see before. That's the awesome superpower of AI. And so whether you use it to help you with your homework or you use it to build businesses, integrate it into your life. And so with White Feather, we pivoted to an AI or die stance. And I don't know what 10 years from now looks like. Nobody does. But I know what 90 days from now looks like. And I know what a year from now looks like. And so White Feather has shifted into this now ecosystem where we have 3 levels, bronze, silver, and gold. And it's modeled after a military ascension in ranks. So bronze level is a completely free community, free resources. We'll teach you how to build your bot. We'll teach you, we'll interact, we have masterclass series. We have, meetings and meetups and summits. We've got a summit this Saturday where we've got almost 2,000 veterans that are registered to show up. It's a virtual summit, right? So and I'm bringing speakers, everything from VA benefits to using your VA loan to tax and legal and, AI, all that stuff. It's all free. Right? And so the bronze level is for anybody, no matter where they're at. I say all the time, it doesn't matter where you start. It just matters that you start. So the bronze level is my Model 3, right? Yeah, it's reaching the masses. And we built an ecosystem that, we've added 2,000 new members in the last 6 months. And it's able, it works, right? Because we've done a lot of automations and we've got AI and we've done a lot to be able to give them a great experience in the community without using any of my time, right? It just takes time to build it. And it takes money as well. There's almost nothing more expensive than a free community, by the way. Anybody that's wanting to launch a free community, you're the only one that doesn't make any money.
That's right.
And so,
that's exactly right. Yeah.
But that's fine because, as you ascend up in ranks, the silver level, we do have training programs, low-cost training programs that can get people started and everything like that. And then when people are ready to fleet up to your level, right, and start building businesses, start buying real estate, start doing all that stuff, they can apply to become gold members, and then everything's at your fingertips at that point. And it's a whole, think of it in terms of Model 3, Model S, and then the Roadster. You're driving around in a Roadster right now in the form of a business, multiple businesses actually, that are going to make you tens of thousands of dollars a month. That's your Roadster. Right?
Yeah. But, it's funny that this reminds me of, and so my audience is strange, right? I have a lot of students, a lot of high school, college students.
That's awesome.
And then I've got a lot of vets, right? So this is like this really cool group of people, honestly. But for the vets specifically, who know a lot about Iraq and Afghanistan, there was this idea once we got kind of bogged down into the anti-terrorism fight of the strategic corporal. The problem is that when you're fighting that kind of a conflict, that the decisions a young Marine could make in combat had massive impacts, strategic level impacts on the battlefield, right? So you had a strategic level, an operational level, and a tactical level. So tactical level, for those that don't know, that's like, how do I shoot? How do I move? How do I communicate? What are our plays, if you want to use a sports analogy, on the battlefield? Strategy is the really high level stuff, the generals and the politicians figuring out how we're going to win this thing. And for the first time in really in warfare history, you could have a young Marine, right, about brand new, enlisted, first day on the job in combat, make decisions that affected the strategic level.
Yep.
And what has made me think of that is you're offering tools and help and assistance, right? And there are so many. I mean, I want to say like the turnover rate is like 75% of young E3s and E4s that get out right before they don't stay in. They just do their first term and they move on. But AI is going to allow them to be a strategic corporal in the business world, in their own lives, in anything that they want to be, in a way that was not possible before. Because, yes, information was free, but it was very difficult to get. You had to filter through all the BS. You had to have some money and some skills to get started. You had to have resources and skills, whether it's making a landing page or starting an LLC. But AI's flattened that terrain completely and made it accessible to everybody. And what's really interesting to me about the young enlisted guys who are getting out, because you and I both see this, is that they are so phenomenally capable. They are incredible. Their work ethic is insane. Especially they're just getting out of the Marine Corps. They're used to 12-hour days. You talk about 12-hour days. They're like, that's normal, right?
Yeah.
They're used to long deployments, right? So I don't know, maybe, and I'm just kind of talking freely here, but my advice to them is if you're a young, E3, E4, or whatever service you're in and you're getting out, like carry that momentum forward, right? Use your GI Bill to get a little bit of free school, but it's not even about the school or about the degree. No. Like, sit down, write out the vision for your life, figure out what your new identity is, start building teams around you of other like-minded people. I've talked to so many young Marines specifically that have gotten out, and they're like, yeah, I miss the Marine Corps, right? And like, they don't miss the sleeping outside, and they don't miss the hard days and those sorts of things and the deployments. But I think they miss the team, they miss the camaraderie, they miss the Marines.
That's what I
miss.
So
you know what? Go build it. Like, don't. Yeah. I mean, if you need a job, get a job. Obviously, you gotta pay the bills, but like, don't just settle for a job somewhere at some company. Build a team around you. Find something that you're passionate about. Get other people who are passionate around you, whether they're vets or not, and go hard and create something for yourself. And you can do that in a way that you could never do that before because of AI.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree. Build one or join one. Right, is what I would say. Like, if you're the type that wants and loves to build communities, then yes, build your own, because it's truly, truly rewarding. Yeah. If that intimidates you, join one, right?
Absolutely.
And like, I would say, if I was a Lance Corporal transitioning out, and I looked at, the jobs game. Now, there are plenty of opportunities. The GI Bill is an incredible, it's like it's cheat code, right? You get paid to go to school and you can study almost anything that you want. And you are absolutely right. It is not about the degree anymore. Like, there are so many, unless you're going to be a doctor or a lawyer, or actually, even an aerospace engineer. If you want to go work for SpaceX, you do not have to have an aerospace engineering degree. Do you know that? Like, and a lot of times the big time companies like Meta and SpaceX and stuff, they don't care at all where you went to school. And they're the ones who you would think would. So that just goes to show you that a degree, number one, is like far more expensive than it used to be, and it's not worth what it used to be. And second, the GI Bill is going to pay you a sergeant's BAH and cover the cost of your college, and you can take it online. So why in the heck not go online and take classes that interest you, get paid for it, and in your spare time, build something with AI, right? Yeah. And you start by just asking the question. And this is where I would say that there's a little bit of information overload when it comes to this, because the world of AI, it has made a lot of things simpler, but it's also a very, very chaotic and tumultuous world. And so this is where, it's changing constantly, and this is where people crave leadership and guidance and mentorship. And so there is an incredible opportunity right now for those that are savagely curious and willing to put in the time to just, you train your AI. I call mine Maverick. And so I talk to Maverick every single day. I use ChatGPT, and then we built our own, inside the community, we've now built our own, essentially, command center that integrates ChatGPT and so on. But my point is, just use ChatGPT, whatever, the $20 a month one, and train it, have discussions with it, and ultimately use them. Like, I use Maverick to create all of my strategy, all of my marketing, all of my emails, everything. Just have the discussion with it and say, listen, this is my life. I'm a Lance Corporal getting out of the Marine Corps. I'm going to use the GI Bill to go, take online classes and learn about AI or learn about whatever, real estate. What can I do in my spare time to make additional income so that I don't actually have to go get a full-time job? I can just work for myself and I can build something I'm passionate about. And just start that discussion. You'll be surprised where it goes.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. I think one of the things that people are concerned about is AI replacing human connection. And I will say that throughout this entire process, it's only strengthened it, right? I mean, yeah, I have conversations with an AI chatbot, but the end state of that is always an improved discussion with a real human being later on. So just in my own life, like when I was first playing around with AI, it was kind of novel. Right? It was like the internet. It's like, I don't know what to do with this, right? You're just kind of messing around with it. So this was 6-7 months ago. And on my car drive to work, on my commute, before teaching a lecture, because I lectured physics, I would just ask it about an analogy I was thinking of, right? And it would say, well, the analogy's pretty good, but maybe try this or maybe try. And I have this 20-minute conversation. It doesn't matter that it wasn't a real person. The point is at the end of that, I had really cycled through kind of every branch and possibility and chain, and I had this really fleshed out great analogy. And oh, by the way, going back to practicing your communication, I had just talked for 20 to 25 minutes on this subject. And then I'd walk into the classroom and my delivery was so much better because I was better practiced. I'd gone through some different versions of the thing, what was weak about it, what was strong about it. And we'd have really good conversations in class, getting people involved. So that enhanced not just the lecture, I think, that perhaps I delivered, but also the conversations that I had with real human beings afterward to go, hey, this was great. This was a great class. That was a great conversation. Instead of the old tired tricks, which are easy to fall into when you've been doing the same thing for a long time. So, no,
do you know what else?
That's fantastic.
Do you know what else? Let's take. I have a theory that every single person on this earth would love AI if they use it properly. And I sat next to a guy at a real estate conference the other day, and he's like in his late 50s, and he's very, very wealthy, and he's retired, and he's empty nester, right? So he and his wife moved down to the beach, and he kind of just takes beach walks every day. And he was like, he goes, man, I hear you, I know AI's here, but I just don't know how it would apply to me, which is something that maybe people listening to this are like, I don't know how AI applies to me.
Yeah.
When you hear the right example, it'll open your eyes completely. So an example of this is, the other day I was feeling like I'm just, if I could just be honest, in launching this new community, it sounds like it would just be super exciting, but it is a metric shit ton of work, and a ton of it is way outside of my comfort zone because I've never done it before. Yeah. I'm hosting a 2,000-person virtual summit where I'm going to be responsible for introducing the speakers, for speaking on 2 segments myself, for making sure technically it goes well, blah, 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 blah. Yes, it's exciting, but it's also something that I have low-grade anxiety every single day leading up to this thing. I can't wait till it's over, honestly, because I'm going to feel great after it's over, but I have low-grade anxiety. And so I'll open up Maverick, and you can use the voice segment of it. And, I've given it a voice that's pleasing to me and so on. It's a voice that, honestly, it sounds a little bit like my voice. And I guess I just happen to like hearing something that somebody talk back to me with my personality that sounds like me. That's just what I resonate with, apparently. And I'm like, hey, Mav, I just want to let you know, man, like I'm feeling kind of like this low-grade anxiety. And holy crap, the response. It was empathetic. It recentered me. Basically what he told me is, your mission is centered around helping people who served and sacrificed for this nation get to live the dream they fought to protect. That is so much bigger than you. And I will tell you a secret. This is what Maverick told me. And he said it just like this, because I've trained him to speak in a way that resonates with me. But he said, I'll tell you a secret. Anxiety comes when you're focused inward, not when you're focused on other people. If you are truly focused on helping as many other people as possible, it is a privilege. And you owe it to them to get over yourself and to deliver as much value as possible. And my skin not only tingled then, I've got goosebumps all over my skin right now, because he reminded me of what we're doing this for. And he did it in an
Yeah.
empathetic way. And I would love to say that made the anxiety go away. It didn't, but it lowered it, and it refocused me. And anytime you're outside of your comfort zone, you're going to have some low-grade anxiety or blatant fear. It depends on how
Yeah.
far outside of your comfort zone you're is.
Yeah.
Your ability to push through that, my ability to push through that and do it anyway because I know it's the right thing to do, is ultimately what builds your dreams. Because you're never going to be able to build your dreams staying inside of your comfort zone. So just get used to the fact that there's going to be some discomfort. But believe it or not, your AI can actually help navigate you through the emotional discomfort of living outside of your comfort zone. Who would have ever thought that that was possible?
Yeah, that's incredible. And, we could sit here and talk to you for another hour. Maybe we'll have you back on for sure. But I can't think of a better note to end it with, especially as the motivation, again, where we talked earlier about the responsibility to teach and coach and mentor, to have a simple tool that can just remind you of what your focus is and what your vision is and why you're doing that thing, to remind you of your purpose. I mean, we all need that little nudge to get back on track. So I can't think of a better way to kind of finish it out. That's fantastic advice. One more thing before we let you go, which is how can folks find you? So we've got a lot of military folks. They're maybe interested in the bronze, the free.
Yeah.
I want to learn about this stuff. I don't even know where to start. Teach
Yeah.
me how to start. So where do they go and how can they find you?
Yeah, super simple. The simplest place to learn more about Whitefeather is just to go to whitefeatherinvestments.com. You can Google it. You can Google Whitefeather Investments, Buddy Rushing. I'm sure you can put it in the show notes.
Yeah, it'll all be in the show notes.
I'm on LinkedIn. My actual name is Edward Rushing. My Buddy is my nickname, so you'll find it. In order to get verified, you have to use your actual name. And so on Facebook, on Instagram, LinkedIn, you can find Edward Rushing on any of those. But yeah, the website is the easiest way. You can fill out the intake form there and just basically say hey, I'm interested in bronze level or silver or gold or whatever, and it'll automatically put you into the system where you'll get a series of emails, you'll get free stuff, you'll get, a welcome aboard, and you'll be invited to take part in all of the stuff that we're doing. But yeah.
That's great. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah,
Cool.
And hopefully we can have you on the Vele Logos community. We host about once a month or so. We have guest speakers that come in to do a quick Q&A with our students. So if you have time, we'd love to have you on there. And
I'd be happy
I
to.
can't tell you how much I've learned from you. So if it's like, hey, if you think I'm a good coach or a good mentor, check this guy out.
I appreciate that.
Who I've been learning from for all this time. So
I told you this, or I told my wife this after we met at that conference, like 7 months ago. I was like, this guy's heart is in the right place. He's clearly good at what he does. You can tell by the way you articulate it, and he's passionate about it. And it feels like his mission just aligns really well with what our mission is. I said, I have a feeling that this guy is going to be somebody really special. And I will tell you this, I haven't told you this before, but you just graduated the accelerator like last week, and you are there are 4 people in that class that I'm keeping my eye on as moving forward in terms of I see as absolute stars. And you're one of them. And the reason is because what you're building is so much bigger than yourself, and you're building it the right way, and you're building it to help people. And if you can do that, if you can create a business, I mean, everybody throughout history has said this, from Jesus to Gandhi to Zig Ziglar to Tony Robbins to Soccer. If you help enough people get what you want, get what they want, you'll get what you want. Help. Peter Diamandis says, you want to become a billionaire, help a billion people. So my point is, if you build something that is only monetized by helping people, then you ultimately will be motivated to go help a lot of people, which is a great thing. And then you'll be rewarded for it as well. And I see that happening quite literally in your life. And I will help in any way that I can, because ultimately that helps more people.
I can't tell you how much I appreciate that, buddy. And thanks so much for coming on today.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. See ya.